What's up, everybody? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And today I'm going to be bringing you Shaman King Flowers Chapter 2 review entitled A Relative Wants Me Dead. And that's a very apt title because they're trying to kill Hana Asakura. But anyway, let me first give a quick shout out to my man GT the King for hooking me up with this chapter. Wasn't even aware that chapter 2 of Shaman King Flowers was out. And if you're looking for really good translations of Shaman King Flowers, head over to Mankentrad. Weird name, I know, but post the link in the description box below. And one thing I have to say before I get into this review is reading this chapter felt a little bit weird to me, and also reading the Rurouni Kenshin reboot, because as a lot of you know, if you've seen my manga monthly, I've only been reading seinen and watching seinen. So it feels a little odd when I'm reading a chapter and the characters yell out the name of an attack. It just feels a little bit weird to me. But anyway, shit is getting very serious. Very serious. So first I'm going to give you my summary and a little bit of analysis mixed in with the summary, and then I'm going to give you my overall thoughts on the chapter and where I think this is heading. So in this chapter, at the very beginning, we pick up right where we left off with Hana about to face off against Johan, which is, now we know that's his name. I think his name was revealed this chapter and not last chapter. But the color spread looked fucking boss. I really love those color pages. And like I said before, the artwork is still somewhat skeletal, but the color, it gave it it so it just looked really cool. That minimalism, and in conjunction with that minimalism, the color. So it's sort of where the artwork was lacking, the color kind of compensated for that. And I really like that style. And what we see now that, you know, Johan and Hana, I always want to call Hana Yo for some reason. But now that these two characters are facing off and they're about to engage in a fight, some of that tension that's being produced by this imminent fight is a little bit diffused, because Hana just comes out and starts mocking Johan. He calls him childish. He starts mocking his spirit. And it's a little bit funny, and I like this. I always like a little bit of comedy thrown in with the serious stuff. I think that relieves a lot of the tension, provides some comedic relief. But it's really funny because Hana is mocking Johan, and Johan doesn't even get some of the jokes. So I thought that was really funny. But also what we see here, which is a little bit of indirect characterization, we can sort of discern what type of character Hana is through how he acts and how he speaks. So through a little bit of indirect characterization, we start to a little bit more of his dark edge that I talked about in my last chapter review begins to be revealed, because you see that Hana isn't just mocking this guy because he feels like, you know, this guy's beneath him, but he actually feels insulted. He feels somewhat insulted that this guy who thinks he's a badass would come and challenge Hana right in his own backyard, so to speak. And so we get to see some of his arrogance bubble up. And we get to see his sort of the way he relishes this fight with Johan. And I thought that was very interesting in terms of indirect characterization. And Takei actually used quite a bit of indirect characterization throughout this chapter. And then, so Hana allows Amidamaru to possess his body, and he attacks Johan. But Johan knows this move as well. Of course he knows this move. We've already seen his Oversoul, so of course he knows this sort of lower shamanic technique. So Johan allows his spirit to take over his body, to possess his body, and he blocks Hana's attack. And what happens, what transpires after this is also very interesting in terms of some more indirect characterization, because he blocks his attack, and while he does this, he then starts to analyze Hana a little bit, sort of psychoanalyze him a little bit. He points out the fact that Hana is very quick to resort to violence. And then not only that, but he points out that he's also like his mother, Anna, with a very quick temper. And this is very interesting to me because it points out the fact that Yohane actually, not only does he know about the other Asakuras, and not only does he know about Hana Asakura being the head of, that family, but he also seems to know Anna. Or if he doesn't know Anna, then he knows somebody who knew Anna. And to me, that's a very, very interesting development, I think, in terms of trying to figure out precisely not just who Yohane is, but what he's been doing. What he was doing in the last Shaman King manga and what he's been doing in the intervening period between the last manga and this Shaman King Flowers manga. And like I said, this is more indirect characterization because Amita Maru also pointed this out and also mentioned this about Hana's character, about his personality, about his, I don't want to say thirst for violence, but he does sort of relish violence. And as Amita Maru pointed out to him, if you keep going down this path, it's not going to be good because, as Amita Maru pointed out, violence only produces useless conflict, and useless conflict produces more useless conflict. And so if your main purpose for fighting is to relish fighting, then that's inevitably going to lead to some unintended violent consequences that perhaps you're not prepared for. And it was interesting to me because Yohane was very, very quick to point this out about Hana's personality. And one thing that this sort of alludes to is the fact that Hana is not the hero of this tale. At least not in the general sense, the usual way in which we use the word hero. Because generally when we use the word hero, we mean someone who has heroic qualities like virtue, they're ethical, they're moral, you can count on them to do the right thing, they value things like friendship, loyalty, that sort of thing. But Hana has some of the characteristics and qualities of an anti-hero, and perhaps this is one of the ways that Takei will sort of use Hana's personality to give him a sort of darker edge, at least to be a little bit more darker than what Yo was. And I think we already see that Hana is going to be a darker sort of protagonist, at least darker than Yo was. So after Yohane finishes blocking Hana's attack, Yohane counterattacks, and he's fucking fast. He's real fast. It's literally on one page, they're separated by some distance, and then as soon as you flip the page, he's right up on Hana. I mean, he's real fucking fast. And this reminded me of Seta Sojiro's technique from Rurouni Kenshin. His Shikuchi technique, and for those of you who don't know Japanese, Shikuchi actually literally translates as reduced to earth. And it refers to a swordsman technique when a swordsman gets inside of their opponent's space. So they close the distance between themselves and their opponent so that they can get inside their opponent's space and then attack them. And when Yohane uses this sort of move, the Shikuchi type move to get inside of Hana's space, he beats his ass pretty badly, knocks him up. I mean, roughs dude up pretty badly. And one thing that I really like about this, the way Takei has drawn this fight, is we get a little bit of fight and then we step back and get some indirect characterization through speech. Then they'll engage in a fight again, and then for a second we get some more, interesting developments in terms of, plot progression and in terms of narrative progression. And to me, this signifies that Takei has a very, very strong command of pacing, unlike some other mangakas that we know about. He has a very, very firm command of pacing, and I really like that. That it's not just all fighting, but that is fighting, and then he takes the opportunity in the sort of interim between fight scenes to give us some insight into some narrative developments and into some characterization. So after Yohane counterattacks against Hana, Amita Maru starts wondering about Yohane's identity. He starts wondering precisely who this guy is. And one thing that Amidamaru notices, which I sort of noticed, but only unconsciously, and I guess it should have been obvious to me in retrospect, but Amidamaru notices that Yohane's eye patch is Hao's earring. Very, very interesting. And we learned that this is interesting because, and first of all, Yohane realizes that Amidamaru is trying to figure out who he is. And he claims, and he says that someone picked it up and gave it to him. And then, so Amidamaru infers from this that the person who gave Yohane that eye patch, that earring, Hao's earring, must have been someone at the shaman fight. So it must have been someone who was with them at the shaman fight and that Amidamaru knows. So the immediate questions are, well, who gave Yohane this Hao's earring to use as an eye patch? And not only that, Yohane claims that someone else has the other earring, and he alludes to the fact that he has some idea about who that is. So I'm wondering about the identity of that person as well. So we get a little bit of a mystery thrown in as well. And then Yohane starts to get very, very serious. He does his Oversoul, and it's that big ass, I mean, his umbrella just becomes this fucking huge Oversoul, ridiculous. And it really reminds me of the Spirit of Sword, which was Yo's Oversoul when he used that, I forget what the name of that damn thing, Futsu no Mitama, something like that, when he used that. And that comes up later on in the chapter as well. But anyway, Yohane starts to get serious. He unleashes his Oversoul, and he starts talking about the fact that, he's going to get revenge on the next head of the Asakura family. And at this point, he's basically preparing himself to kill Hana. Wow. Already in the second chapter, the protagonist is in a situation where somebody's trying to kill him. Wow. Then something very interesting happens. Hana says to Yohane, listen, I don't give a damn about family matters. I just don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care about being the head of the Asakura family. So if you want to fight me for that reason, shove it. But what he does say is that he cares about his father because he wants to defeat him. More interesting developments in the relationship between Hana and Yo. And I thought this was another very good bit of characterization because it adds another dimension of characterization to Hana via his relationship with his father. And I think for Hana, I think he's angry at the fact that he doesn't have a relationship with his mother or his father. And so I think he's also angry about having to take on the responsibility of being the head of the Asakura family, which is something that he clearly doesn't want to do. And I think that for Hana, Yo has become this object onto which he can project all of his anger. I won't go so far as to say hatred, because I don't think it's necessarily hatred, but Yo does become an object onto which he can project all of his anger. And so the anger that he feels towards his father, this sort of relationship that he has with his father built on anger, sort of allows Takei to lay the foundation for, again, a darker protagonist of this story, more darker than Yo was. And then Hana pulls out Futsu no Mitama. That's the name of that mythical short sword. Kind of looks like maybe a wakizashi, maybe a short sword. But anyway, it's the short sword that Yo used to use to unleash his OS, Spirit of Sword. And so Yohane then goes to attack Hana. I keep wanting to call him Yo so bad. But Yohane goes to attack Hana with his Tsukiyomi lance. And like I said, it's just a huge, huge fucking OS. Just ridiculously big. And Hana manages to block it with Futsu no Mitama because he unleashes his Oversoul. And it turns out it's some sort of helmet. And the Oversoul does look pretty cool. It looks pretty cool. And it's a very, very interesting Oversoul because it doesn't seem to have at first when he unleashes it, it doesn't seem like it has any attack capabilities. It's just a helmet. But he's able to block Yohane's attack with it. And then something really, really cool happens. Like I said, at first glance, the Oversoul is a helmet, and it doesn't appear to have any attacking capabilities. It seems like it's an Oversoul that's just defense oriented. But at some point, the helmet changes form. It changes into another Oversoul. And then Hana uses this Oversoul to attack Yohane. And apparently the attack is so fierce that it breaks Yohane's arm. And what's very, very interesting about this is that, first of all, I don't think we've ever seen an Oversoul that can change forms. Like, you have an Oversoul, it has one form, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the fight, it changes into another Oversoul. Now, I could be wrong about this because I haven't read the original Shaman King manga in about 3 years. So, again, I could be wrong about that. But I don't ever remember that being an ability of somebody's Oversoul. But not only that, Hiroyuki Takei gets a little tricky with us. He gets a little slick because he doesn't actually show what Hana's helmet Oversoul turns into. And so I'm now really, really curious to see what this Oversoul looks like. Does it have some sort of resemblance to Yo's Oversoul? I'm thinking that it does because, after all, he's inherited Amidamaru and he's inherited Futsu Mitama. So I'm thinking that this Oversoul, hopefully, this Oversoul looks really, really beast. And one thing, this also gives us some insight into Hana's Hana's strength as a shaman. Because Hana, it's clear at this point that Hana is stronger than his father. I mean, he can already use an Oversoul, not just an Oversoul, but he can make his Oversoul change its form and do so with great proficiency. So that already lets me in on the fact that Hana is stronger than Yo at this point. And not only this, but Amidamaru confirms that Yohane's Oversoul was as powerful as Yo's Spirit of Sword. Wow. Wow. That's a very interesting development. That Yohane's Oversoul, his Tsukiyomi Lance, is as powerful as Yo's Spirit of Sword. And remember how powerful Yo's Spirit of Sword was. Holy shit. And not only was Yohane as powerful as Yo, but Hana was able to beat Yohane. So it's clear that at similar points in the narrative, Hana is definitely, stronger than his father, Yo. So that gives us some insight into power levels and into Hana's strength. And after Yohane is defeated, Yohane's sister comes into the scene, and she basically vows to take revenge for her brother. And so perhaps at some point, it's going to have to happen this way. At some point, we're going to have to see Hana face off against Yohane's sister. And so that was pretty much the bulk of the chapter. There was some other stuff in there, but I don't think it was really important for me to go over that stuff. So just to give you a quick analysis of this chapter, I'm really, really loving the way this manga has started off. It starts off with a hell of a plot twist at the end of the first chapter, and then more greatness in terms of characterization and the fact that Hana has a darker edge and the fighting. I'm really, really loving it, and I'm really, really loving Takei's writing style. I think that Takei probably has the most compact writing style of any mangaka I've read. And what I mean by compact is that he's able to put a lot of material into one chapter. Very, very dense chapters. Never seen anyone use symbolism the way he uses it, and integrate multiple aspects of storytelling all together in a single chapter. I mean, that's pretty good. And of course, the characterization I thought was pretty good. The fight was pretty good. And also, Takei seems to be continuing with this theme of the relationship between violence and humanity that was started first by Hao in the first Shaman King manga, and then continued with Yo in his Shaman King 0 chapter, and now it's being continued with the fact that Hana is a darker protagonist in Shaman King Flowers. So very good start. Can't wait to see more. So this was your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga. Just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day.